My name is Fraser.
My name is Mark.
And we are the hosts of the geekiest show alive. To the outside world, we're ordinary geeks.
But in the Fab International Studios, we talk comics and find other geeks just like us. This is Geek of the Week.
So, this is Pull or Pass, the part of the show where we take a look at typically 3 comic books that have come out this week, and we say whether we would pull or pass on them. So, if you're wondering what the term pull means, you're like, whoa, guys, you've lost me. Basically, whenever you go into a comic book store and you pick up, let's say you've just seen Endgame, you pick up an Avengers book, could be an Avengers 1, 2, 3, 5, whatever it is. You pick it up, you put it on the desk, you pay for it, and the clerk goes, hey, do you want to add this to your pull? And you say, yeah, sure, why not? Basically, whenever an Avengers comic comes out, a 6, 7, Infinity, they'll leave it behind the desk for you to sort of like, basically to save it for you, because the comic book stores can be crazy on a Wednesdays. People trying to get all kind of issue, and, you know, sometimes you'll miss out on your issue, and you'll end up having like, oh, I've got Avengers 1 to 10, but then I don't have 11, 12, 13, but I have 14, 15, 16, and it can cause
that would suck.
A lot of anxiety and a lot of, oh man. But you can also do this for, like, say if you know a comic book's coming out in the future, you can be like, oh, can I put this on my pull? And sometimes that means that you actually get that book instead of, like with lesser known books, including Marvel and DC books, not just indie titles, comic book retailers might not get it unless they know someone's going to buy it. And, you know, it's one of those things, it's a business, you know, you can't have all these books on the shelves that no one's reading. But this month's very exciting. So last week's show, it was the 4th of May, but it was also the first Saturday in May, which for the past couple of years has been Free Comic Book Day, and this year it was exactly the same. There was 51 books that were released on Free Comic Book Day. Now, we teamed up with Travelling Man in Manchester. They have stores all around the UK, so definitely recommend checking them out.
There's one in Leeds, there's one in Newcastle, and there's one in York as well.
Yeah,
so they have got 4 branches, and we are sponsored by Travelling Man for the Pull or Pass section.
This is what we were saying. Thanks to Free Comic Book Day and talking to Travelling Man, Pull or Pass is now sponsored by Travelling Man. So thank you, the people at Travelling Man, the fellow geeks at Travelling Man. Definitely, if you listen to this and you want to go into a comic book store near you that's one of those locations, definitely check them out. If you've never been to a comic book store before in your life as well, definitely check them out. They're
to be fair, I used Travelling Man regardless.
Yeah,
they were already my comic book store, and I loved them anyway, but I loved them just a little bit more now.
We finally had the guts to talk to them, but we've teamed up with them this month, and like I said with Free Comic Book Day, we managed to get 30 books. They gave us a haul. They themselves got 30 books in. There's very few comic books that get all 51. Trust me. I
went to another comic book store and they got in 5. Just to put that into perspective.
5 that we already had as well.
Yeah.
So, yay, Travelling Man. But we're basically, for the rest of this month, Pull or Pass is dedicated to Free Comic Book Day. We're going to read 10 at a time. And we're sort of doing it as there's sort of a theme around it. Like the 10 this week are sort of from the quote unquote big publishers. So your Marvel, your DCs, your Image, your Dark Horse, your properties that you will know. And sort of a lot of these books have been advertisements for their other medias. So like they'll either be getting you in because they know you watch their TV show or their film and they want to get you into comic books, or it's a comic book to set up their film and TV stuff.
These are more gold titles. We were talking about gold and silver last week, and these are more gold titles that we're looking at today. But they're not the ones I was necessarily particularly interested in.
Interestingly enough, though, as well, some of them are gold, some of them are silver, and some that are silver you'd think, oh, I did not expect that. But let's get it started anyway. And if you've checked out any of these free comic books, we'll be interested to get your thoughts. But we'll talk more about that end when I do the hello, fellow geek spiel at the you know the typical
you
bit.
Do it every single time.
So now the first free comic book we're looking at is the Avengers plus Savage Avengers. So you get 2 stories in this. It's really cool.
Quite a lot of the books do that, actually.
Yeah. So this is the new Avengers team with Jason Aaron at the front, and the Savage Avengers is really cool because it's Jerry Duggan. He's him and his team run that book. Now let's get your thoughts on both the Avengers and Savage Avengers. You can split your thoughts up into two.
Well, I did enjoy the thinly veiled sideswipe at DC Comics. I thought that was wonderful and
you mean
completely accurate.
The DC heroes?
Yeah, it was 100% accurate. Marvel is doing better than DC at the moment, and I did feel it was a little bit like they were kicking people while they were down.
I did like
that. It was true. It was true. It was pretty savage.
It was funny because they did a nod on this on Twitter, and it's like, oh, the DC heroes, and everyone's like, wait, Marvel are teaming up with DC, and it was like Washington DC.
Washington DC, and that clever, yeah, and
very clever.
The Washington DC characters looked like DC
a bit, yeah,
comic counterpart.
Yeah.
It wasn't subtle,
no,
and I enjoyed it because I prefer Marvel to DC, but I can see how, particularly, you could see it as, kicking someone when they were down, and it's an unnecessary side swipe.
Well, it's funny,
but I liked it.
It's funny because I'd say DC Comics, well, maybe not recently. Actually, no, have been doing better than Marvel. Marvel have managed to kick it back up because they're less. They used for the longest time they were like so focused on being like their films and TV shows that their comics were suffering, but they've managed to turn that around, in my opinion, anyway. Now, and DC were doing well because they were focusing on their comics, and I think it's a nice little balance. I enjoyed seeing like the different Avengers characters, like
the alternative worlds,
like
Avengers.
Captain Kosar, and we saw like a Beta Ray Bill, which was pretty cool. I was like, oh, that's nice. And then like the Captain Marvel that was in flames, I was like, oh, hello. That was kind of cool to see, and then them on a mission. And there was a lovely callback to so one of the things, like I mentioned before, Marvel getting themselves back on track, was this new line they launched called Legacy, and it started with this Legacy book, which was all about how all these different characters have their own legacies. So like your Spider-Mans, your Captain Americas, your Black Panthers, they all have legacies. But the ones that were really interesting were the ones sort of like your Black Panthers, like your Ghost Riders, and your Sorcerer Supremes, because we know them as T'Challa, we know them as Doctor Strange, we know them as Thor, but before that there was people like them before, so they sort of did a years ago Avengers team led by Odin, a different Black Panther at the realm, a different Sorcerer Supreme. And they brought it back in this, which was very exciting, because I remember reading the Legacy book and going, oh, I'm excited to see where this goes. And it went pretty well. But then seeing them at the end with this one, where
that's cool.
Because this whole book's narrated by Tony Stark, which was a nice touch considering what happened with Endgame.
Yeah.
And
deliberate.
then you see Mjolnir flying, you're like, oh, hello. And then it's Odin, you're like, okay, this is pretty cool, and it's exciting what it sets up. This seems to be sort of like after War of the Realms as well, which is the big story that they're leading to now.
Yeah,
and Thor's getting a lot of Thor and Odin and that sort of area, Asgard, the whole different realms, is getting a big push at the moment in Marvel, and it's because, well, mainly Jason Aaron's writing all this stuff, and he was the one who did Thor and then did now is doing Avengers, and it's very similar to what Jonathan Hickman did with Fantastic Four. Like, he made the Fantastic Four a big thing and then had this big event, Secret Wars, that involved it all, and it's nice when a writer's able to do this with a big company like Marvel. I think so. It's very, very exciting.
What did you think of Savage Avengers, Fraser? Because I've actually read the first issue of Savage Avengers as well. I just bought it. It wasn't on pull or pass, but I just bought it because I like the look of it.
I really enjoyed it, and I like the team because obviously it's like Wolverine and I did Elektra, and I liked the whole thing of because it's the Hand in it who they're trying to intimidate Matt Murdock, and then that whole reveal of Elektra was like, oh, you think the greatest student Stick had was Matt Murdock, and then it's like, I was like, it definitely lives up to the name Savage Avengers.
The characters they picked, the Punisher and Venom, they're all lethal
savage,
protectors for wanting
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
They're all weapons.
Yeah, and then as a concept, it's brilliant, and this was good, but it wasn't great. And I'd say the same of the first issue of Savage Avengers as well. For me, when I got Savage Avengers issue 1 rather than this free comic book day copy, it was a tentative pull, because it was just good enough.
Wanting more.
It was just good enough.
Yeah,
but only just. So it was. It's the lowest form of pull for me, but I have a feeling it's going to get better.
I like, go on then.
Yeah, there's an go on then pull.
At some point. Now, the next book we're talking about, another Marvel book, and a book, this is the biggest exciting one I was happy we were picking up, was the Spider-Man one. It's also got a Venom story in this, so it's a Venom and Spider-Man story, and it's starting a big summer 2019 event, and that was the big sort of thing I got from the Venom book, was it was setting up absolute carnage. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago.
I was already in for that.
When the writers, mentioned that, and like before that, they even mentioned that 2 big events were going to get set up, and I loved that we got Eddie Brock sort of like almost narrating, but it was through a police interview, and he was saying, you need to call the Avengers and all this, and everyone's like, oh, he wants help from them, and it's like, no, to warn them, and I'm like, oh, you're setting up Carnage to be a big threat here.
I really like this. I've not read Venom for a while, I'll be honest, and I know that the current run is being very much well loved, so it's probably something I should look at in trade as soon as I can. But I like Eddie Brock as a madman who is separation anxiety.
Exactly.
I like this character,
and it's one of them as well.
It's kind of almost heartbreaking, but I like it.
Yeah, because the two of them have built that relationship over the years, and it's cool to see. What did you think of Lee Price? Because the guy who had like had the Venom tattoo, and he was like, "No, you're not Venom." And it was very, very well done. I was, to be honest, I was already in for Absolute Carnage because I loved Total Carnage so much. That it's a passover. Maximum Carnage.
Maximum Carnage. And
I reckon Totally Carnage will be the next one.
Maybe
the trilogy.
But no, I was already in. But this just reassured me.
Yeah, for sure. And it was a good way to set up as well, because I feel like a lot of people will pick up the Spider-Man book, maybe not reading Venom and being like, oh. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you got, because it would I can see this setting up, a big Venom story, but it can also affect the Avengers as well. So like they said with their 2 stories, I can see this book setting up too. But definitely, we've got some cool summer stuff to expect from this.
Yeah.
And the second one, I just kind of liked it because they teased it at the beginning. It's like Spider-Man versus Spider-Man. Ellipsis, the gloves are off, and they do this thing like they're setting up this big battle, but it's not. It's just like they're competing with what's the best pizza in New York, and it was a nice little story between the two. That cute little relationship between Peter Parker and Miles. There's that generational thing as well.
Let's be honest, their friendship is very similar to yours and mine.
Yeah,
it's very, very
I
do
references that you don't get.
Yeah. And
which Miles did in this.
You're my best mate, and that's never what I expected. I never expected my best mate to be nearly half my age, but who cares? And that's what the 2 Spider-Men have. That's what Miles and Peter have. And I liked reading it because it reminded me of us.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice.
And the best pizza in New York is in the Bronx.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, from the pizzas I've had, all 3 of them, in New York, the best pizza is in the Bronx.
My favourite pizza is the one that costs $1, because they're literally everywhere, and it's like you can get a pizza for $1. And this isn't like some dodgy pizza. This is like a big slice of pizza. I do love pizza from New York. But I liked what the pizza represented to them, and how like Peter and Miles like, you know what? Because the Shocker's like, no, the best pizza's clearly from whatever, and they're like, oh, this guy's mental.
Yeah.
But it is that thing of like the pizza. They're like, oh no, this is the best pizza to me because it represents my childhood. It represents growing up.
We've had arguments like that.
It feels like the reason why this is the best pizza is because it reminds them of their, Peter being with Aunt May, eating pizza when he was 8 or whatever, and it brings it all back. And they still have that joke thing of like Miles being like, oh, but I'd still have some of your pizza. And he goes, yeah, I guess your inferior pizza's okay too. And it's that fun dynamic. It's a story about pizza, which is great. I would have even, like, there's some people who would be a bit like, oh, it's a good thing it's a free comic book because otherwise I probably would have read this story.
Yeah, I think it's a lovely little story.
I would have read this story even if we had to pay for it because I just love it. And we didn't even... Right, how are we going to do this? So, for Avengers and Savage Avengers, pull or pass on reading Avengers?
Savage Avengers was a pull for me, I said that.
Yeah, Avengers,
we don't have to play it as formal as pull and pass, but
I reckon we should.
It's a pull for me on Maximum, not Maximum Carnage.
Absolute Carnage.
Absolute Carnage.
Because that's my question for this one, is pull or pass on Maximum Carnage. Absolute Carnage. You've got me doing it now.
Sorry.
So the way this pull or pass...
It's a pull.
Actually, let's reel it back. So the way pull or pass for this will work is a lot of these free comic books will set up something for their book, or they'll say if you want to keep reading,
or they
these.
might suggest that you start reading the comic book from the start.
Yeah, so what we'll do is that'll be our pull-up pass.
that'll be
so
our
after
pull-up
reading this, so yeah, for this Spidey book, they're not trying to set up a pizza series. It is the absolute carnage.
Absolute carnage.
Which is absolutely a pull.
Yeah, for me too.
Now we're moving over to. Oh no, we're not. I need to move these out the way. We're moving over to DC.
Okay.
Some would say the second biggest publisher. Some would say the first biggest publisher. Depends.
Definitely the second.
Who you think is. So the first book we're going to look at is a Catwoman tale, which I didn't see at first. I only saw because the title's called Under the Moon. I was like, oh, this Under the Moon looks cool. And then I was like, who's it by though? And then I saw DC. I was like, oh, and then I went, oh yeah, of course, it's the Catwoman book. And this also had a preview of Teen Titans Raven as well. This, importantly, to make a note of, this is part of the DC Inc. line, and they have a little note at the beginning. It says, this sample has been deemed appropriate for all audiences. This book in its entirety is intended for young adults 15 plus. So DC Inc., they brought out a couple of labels. The other book we're talking about is another label, but we'll go into that there. We mentioned ages ago about the DC Black label. It had the Batman where he showed his Batawong.
But that was basically a rehash of Vertigo.
Yeah, that's
this seems to be like in between.
This one is sort of like your young adults are sort of like
in between the main titles and whatever the new Vertigo.
It's sort
called,
of like
right?
young adult novels, so it's more intended like your Hunger Games and your books like that.
Yeah, your Philip Pullman and
exactly.
his Dark Materials.
And it makes sense that we've got Catwoman as a lead because a lot of those YA novels do focus on a female protagonist. And in this tale we get a teenage sort of a teenage Catwoman, which was nice to see. And
it's a self-contained story. It was lovely.
Yeah,
and it's something I can very much empathise with. There is a huge joy in having a cat.
Yeah,
and a cat being a cat, just
a
making
cute cat
you happy.
Called Cinders, and I was like, oh. And then there's this horrible like thing with the stepdad, and I'm like, oh no, she just wants the cat, and just
the whole thing reminds me a lot of, because I read a lot of teenage fiction anyway. I just like it. And a lot of teenage fiction is a lot more bleak than I would expect it to be. And this is pretty heartbreaking, pretty brutal and shocking in a lot of ways. I can see why it was... It's edging towards inappropriate for particularly young kids, because it's heartbreaking. And, there's a website that'll tell you whether the dog dies in films. I feel like
there?
Yeah, there is. And you can type in any film and it'll tell you whether or not there's a dog die in it, so you can avoid it if there's a dead dog. I think that there should be one of those for comic books as well, for dogs and cats.
Dogs and cats.
I wasn't ready.
No, it's
horrible. I wasn't ready.
I also liked her relationship with Bruce.
Yeah,
because we get introduced to Bruce, and it's sort of that whole thing. She's like, "Oh, like she doesn't see themselves as friends," and Bruce like, "Oh no, we're still friends, but I went through this," and we had a mini Batman origin within this tale, but it didn't take up the whole book, and it works well for their character and their dynamic because, well, in current continuity, they're married. So it was nice to see that, and beautiful art. Just like looking at the front cover, which again is why I think it took me back that it was a DC book. It was so well illustrated, and that's not a dig at DC saying they're not usually well illustrated, but it's that thing of when you see a DC or a Marvel book, you expect the characters and all that sort of thing. Whereas this was sort of just like a different tale. It almost did look like a young adult novel.
It looked like an indie.
Yeah, and it was really, really well done, and it's nice you get to see, her with the cat and stuff. It's lovely. So, and also the preview we had was for Teen Titans Raven, and what I really enjoyed about this was everyone was in black and white, apart from Raven, but Raven wore black, so it looked like she was almost in black and white, but her hair really highlighted, and I think it emphasized her sort of mystery and sort of like her characteristics in this world, how she is different. And it was funny taking her to a place that's all about like mind reading and stuff like that. It's like, that's sort of like, I've got that power, I've got a kind of power. And they're like, oh, the reason this doesn't work is because someone here must have powers. And she's like, yeah, that's me. Soz.
But for me, I think it was nice and it was self-contained, and I might pick up the trade at some point, but it wasn't quite what I was looking for. It doesn't mean it wasn't good quality, because I think it was.
Yeah, because it's setting up a young adult novel for Raven, which I can say, like, these two characters I think are perfect for that YA demographic. Like we said with what you have in novels, it's really cool that they're bringing it to graphic novels, I think, and I think that's one thing I want to praise DC on, especially is having these different sections for different audiences. I think that's really cool.
It's an interesting move, and I think it could do really, really well, actually.
Yeah. One thing that they advertised on the back as well, which I really enjoyed, was this sort of like it's DC icons, and it looks like these books on the ones are Catwoman, Soul Stealer, Superman, Dawnbreaker, Wonder Woman, Warbringer, and Batman, Nightwalker, but they especially look like young adult novels, and they look kind of cool, and it's like how you can binge read them all. And it would be cool to check some of these out, or just flick through some of them just to see how they how they deal with the characters or something like that. Cause
there've been novelizations in the past, but it's just not been something that I've thought I'm interested in.
These they just spring my curiosity really just from looking at them. But I'd say for this pull or pass, let's say a pull or pass on the imprint. Would you check anything out? Would you add anything from the DC
keep my eye on
ink?
I'm going to keep my eye on it.
So you'd say a pull.
But not a full pull, but
something on the.
It has piqued my interest.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm really interested in this imprint, and I feel like this is what DC are doing with their free comic book day.
And that's what free comic book day is for.
Giving you a tester of their imprints rather than the stories they have going. Because the second imprint we have is DC Zoom, and it's Dear Justice League. Now this is targeted for their young audiences. This is like kids reading. And
I said last week that this was one of the ones I was absolutely dreading.
But I have to say, it is intended for kids, and the first advert you see is Teen Titans Go, so I was like, oh yeah, that's what we're going for. And it's just the images you see, the front cover, it's all these like cartoon, young sort of like almost childish depictions of the characters, but I kind of liked it in that way because it's like, okay, you're in for a whimsical tale, and it's for a younger audience.
The first thing that I noticed, well, you can't fail to notice it really, is the digest style. And that reminded me of Beano comic book libraries, which I loved as a kid.
And they have the same in America with Archie, so it was that kind of thing, and I like that DC are delving into that.
Yeah, I like that they've differentiated it like that, and it was a nice touch, and I'll be honest, this was a pleasant surprise.
I was going to say, I really enjoyed the first story. It was dead cute. So the way they...
I was blown away, to be honest with you. I mean, I was expecting it to be terrible, and I was expecting to hate it. And I really loved it.
It's really cute. So, like the title says, Dear Justice League. So it's them basically. They'll talk about a character. So they talk about Superman and all this, like he's the Man of Steel and all that. And there's all these photos. But then it'll be someone sending them a message, and the Superman message is really cute because it's like, Dear Superman, you're super right, and it goes into this thing, and he's like, do you ever mess up? Because I just messed up big time. And it's this kid who's just like wondering, and he sends it. And Superman's there, like, saving the day, and he's like, do I ever mess up? And then he messes up, but it's one of those like convoluted things where he does something small, like doesn't make it over a building, and then it's that domino effect and everything.
It's like a butterfly effect.
Yeah,
isn't it?
And he has to save the day in this extreme way because he just messed up, and then he's like, you asked me, do I mess up? Yes, I do. And
I've read a lot of comics this week, and this was a genuinely welcome light relief. I was very...
it was cute,
I loved it. I actually loved it.
It was nice.
It surprised me, and I'm pleased it surprised me. And this is actually it's not for an ongoing comic, it's for a one-off graphic novel.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get that. I'm going to buy that comic. I'm going to buy that
Definitely.
That graphic novel.
That's what these imprints are. These imprints are setting up graphic novels, which
a lot of them
really
are
cool.
Not just DC, but a lot of them across the board were like short comic book stories from more graphic novels than monthly release titles. I'm buying this.
Yeah,
that's a pull.
It's 100% a pull for me. So, and this is one of these things of because sometimes I like to look forward to the future, and I think of like if I ever had kids or stuff, or I kind of do want kids. There's a bit too much information for a thing, but like getting them to start reading comic books would be a nice thing for me because. One of the things I suffer from dyslexia. Well, I won't say suffer. Dyslexia is a part of me.
Yeah.
You'll notice on the show, I say it sometimes, there's dyslexic dribble or dyslexic daft moments. But one of the things that really helped me was reading comic books, and sort of that helped me with it. And like if I do have a child, there's a high potential that they're going to have dyslexia. So something like this is really nice. Like, there'll be times I bless my parents and bless my family whenever they try to get me, try and get me comic book stuff for Christmas, and they'll get me like children's versions of the books. So it'd be like explaining origins, but then I still keep them because I think
put them to one side.
Yeah,
for
one day,
future
one
children.
day when I have a kid, or like I can give it to them, and it's a gateway in. And this again it's a gateway for younger kids to start reading comic books, because they'll read this and be like they might see the films or whatever.
But these gateway titles aren't necessarily not for us. If they're well done and they're well written, I will read them. And this was great.
And it's one of them as well, because you work as a librarian as well. So this could be nice as a little like, oh, there you go. It's a nice
I might try and get that bought in for the library as well.
It's really nice. Now this is a big swerve, because we're going on to the Image titles now, and going from a children's book to Image. We always joke about our different tastes and how I'm childlike and you're. The first one we're talking about is Deadly Class Killer Set. So we're going from cute stories to assassinations.
Well, apparently there's a teleseries of this as well. I've never heard of it.
Well, there's a teleseries coming out, and it's the Russo brothers are working on it. And
really,
is it? Oh, what's his name? I think it's Benedict Wong. His last name is definitely Wong, because he plays Wong in the Marvel MCU.
Right, okay.
But he's appearing in it, and so this is, for me, this book was sort of like letting you know that there's a TV series coming out, and also more about like, this is what Deadly Class is. There is books if you want to read before the show, there's books if you want to read after, and as well as being sort of like a showcase of the advertisements were very much a showcase of what Image do. So this was sort of almost like an advertisement for the show. So with this pull, it's almost, we can also sort of say, did it make you want to read more of the Deadly Class books? And we can also do a slight pull that's, did it make you want to watch a TV show? Which we're probably going to watch anyway.
I liked the swipe at comic book fandom in there. I like that a lot. And I like that they didn't pull their punches with the violence. And there was a lot to like about this book. But just from a concept point of view, I don't like it. I think it's... They're trying to do serious with something that is fundamentally ridiculous. There is not an assassin school. You can't have an assassin school.
Yeah.
An assassin school is not a thing because it would be shut down.
How would you
even
know?
In the worst parts of the world, I found the concept difficult, but I liked a lot about this book.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I might watch the teleseries, but I'm not going to read the book.
There might be that thing of like the teleseries doing it.
We'll put that on Binge It or Bin It. We'll put the teleseries on Binge It or Bin It.
Yeah, the teleseries might deal with it a bit better, because there have been wacky concepts or concepts that you're unsure of in the comics.
It doesn't even feel wacky to me. It just feels rubbish. Sorry,
but there are concepts like that that are better dealt with TV studios or looking at it, because there's it's 3 people working on a book and like one writer, so it's sort of one of them. Whereas like when you do a TV series, it's a whole group coming together. Yeah. I really enjoyed our main protagonist. I like that they didn't want to be in this world, and we sort of go back to him, and he's sort of like, he people watches, and sort of that's how he learns about the world, through that and seeing people's interactions. And he's like unsure if he's jealous of people's conversations or whether it's like he's sort of glad he's missing out on that. And it was interesting. It was clear there was that unsure thing of, and it's a thing of that you have when you're a teenager or older, or like happens all the time and never goes away. Well, you're not really sure what you're doing, but you keep going anyway because it seems right. But wow.
That's not necessarily just you, Fraser.
It was nice that they did that in the with their concept of the whole assassination school, and I liked that. For me, it was a bit of a bizarre concept, and it's one of them that you just sort of accept the world. I always accept the world that I'm presented, but I can understand your way of looking at it as well. I like it. There was that thing of like the assignments. One of the assignments or the questions was, name someone from your country and who got assassinated and their assassin, stuff like that. But then they used that as a crux of sort of like because it was from their nation. It was all these people from different nations, and it sort of touched more upon like national stereotypes in a way, if that makes sense, and sort of like the identity you're supposed to have if you are American or if you're from here. So I thought that was a nice little message they had in there, a nice little motif running through, because it ran with the characters in a way, like they're finding their identity through assassinations, really. I liked as well that there was that whole thing of they were talking about what they wanted to be when they were older, and a lot of them didn't want to be assassins. One of them wanted to be like an artist, and someone asked them, but how are you going to change the world? And then I liked one of the characters saying, so why are everyone so focused on changing the world, they're not focused on changing yourself? And then there was, like you say, that dig at Superman. It's like, So, and I was like, oh, nice. And it was a cool message to have in there. And I feel like that message is going to be sort of important to our main protagonist as they go through this series. I think for me, pull or pass-wise, it's definitely a pull in terms of me watching the television series.
Yeah, we'll watch
and then I feel like if I get into the television series, it can become a pull from there. So it's one of them. This book definitely got me interested in the television series, as well as like, you know, the Russo brothers being involved. And I know this comic book writer's done some incredible stuff as well. So, you know, if the television series works out, I would definitely check out the book. It's one of those things. It was like with the Umbrella Academy. I watched it. It was one of them where I was like, Gerard Way, I've heard he's done some okay stuff. And then I watched the teleseries, like, okay, now I'm definitely checking out the book. And it's a nice way to do it. And this is sort of like, again, all this is sort of marketing. So it's marketing the TV series, which is marketing the comics, which, you know, all works out really good. Now, the next Image book we're going to talk about is Spawn 1. And I imagine you have a lot of words on this, because you're a big fan of Spawn.
I already own and love the Spawn. I've got like lots and lots of collected comics of this, and I was like, well, I know Spawn 1. I've read it a few times. I'm really, you know, I'll read it again, and it's in colour.
Yeah, because that's what I was thinking. Because when I looked at this, I was like...
The versions I have on collected comics in graphic novel form are black and white, and then suddenly it was in gorgeous colour.
Because that messed with my head, because I was like, Spawn 1. So I was like, okay, so it's going to be the one from way back when. And then I looked and I was like, wait, but that wasn't in colour. And then I was like, when I was reading it, I was like, the art style was definitely from the time it was released.
It's the original,
so I was like,
but it's been coloured in.
Yeah.
And I would like to see more of that.
It's nice, isn't it? Could you imagine if they retrace the steps? Because the big thing this was pushing was Spawn 300, which is coming out in August 2019. So it was nice that they sort of had this, instead of doing like a whole new issue for it, they went back and sort of, like touched upon it again and coloured it up.
This was very much in its... The story just about holds up in its kind of emo, grungy glory, but the colour just... I was very, very pleased. I wasn't expecting it. I opened the book and I was like, oh, here we go.
Speaking of opening stuff up, that full page splash page where you like have to turn it. You have to like, you're reading it this way and then you turn it and go, oh, that's epic.
That was great in black and white, but it's so gorgeous in colour.
Oh, it was beautiful. Like, that was my first time seeing the splash page, and seeing it in colour as well.
I would have always argued that Spawn didn't need to be in colour, but oh my goodness, I was so glad.
Seeing it in colour, it's like, I do enjoy it as well, though.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, it's an odd one. I read this book, and
is it a pull or a pass?
Well, it was already a pull, but it's almost like a pull squared, because I want to see it in colour.
In colour again, yeah. You want to see it all. Are you going to check out Spawn 300? I mean, we could probably stick it on pull or pass.
Yeah, I think, let's stick it on pull or pass. Yeah.
So yeah, one thing I did like about this was the whole tortured soul looking for a girl, and sort of like that's how he became Spawn. Like, this is more talking about his origin.
This is very much his origin.
Oh no, I mean for me, because I haven't read this before, so it was really cool to sort of read it. I've obviously been aware of Spawn, but obviously because the origin was so way before my time, I've never been able to sort of, and it's one of those intimidating things of like, it's issue 300, so it was nice to go back and read it. And I did enjoy that sort of tortured soul, like he sacrificed himself for this girl, and now he's stuck with this power that he doesn't really want, and he can't remember this girl, and it's like, goodness, it's
powerful stuff.
So harsh and so cool. It's definitely, see, this is the thing. If 2 was coming out like next week or something in colour, or it was a regular series coming out in colour, I'd definitely add it to a pull. And I'm interested to see the issue 300 and seeing how out of my depth I'll be. And if I'm not out of my depth, we'll find out when we do pull or pass that time. And it's definitely a pull to read the 300 issue, though. And
Brilliant.
Hopefully read some more. Now, moving over from Image, we're now on to Dark Horse Comics. And this is interesting because I was pretty sure we read this a while back, but it wasn't. It was a different story.
It was a different story.
We've got 2 stories from him. It says Stranger Things. It's one book, Stranger Things, also featuring Black Hammer. So do you want to touch upon Stranger Things first? Because we touched upon Stranger Things, the first issue, way back when on Pull or Pass.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I hope it's not this same story. But it wasn't.
Unlike that one, this had spoilers, but that's my fault. I've decided not to watch Stranger Things. I prioritised other things because I didn't get on with it.
So this happens in between season 1 and season 2.
But it is a self-contained story, and there was a lot that I liked with the empathy for D&D players and acknowledging that people don't understand, because I'm a D&D player, and acknowledging that people don't understand, and that even if they're trying hard, they get it so wrong that it's incredibly frustrating. I really... Yeah,
I liked it. That was the way to get,
and it very much gives you the geek feeling of not being understood in this story. And you know, I went through that as a kid, and Steve's attitude in this is very typical, patronising, but not necessarily deliberately so.
Yeah.
And I thought that was well done, and as like a snapshot of how it felt to be a geek when geek wasn't so cool. This got it right.
Yeah, because it is set in the 80s as well, so it will be that time capsule as well and everything.
Yep.
I do like as well, it was sort of Steve and the sister, I always forget her name, Mike's sister. I like their approach of dealing with Mike's, because he was upset because of the situations that happened in season 1. I won't go into too much spoilers. But he was upset from that point. Instead of being like, you know, the stereotypical, oh, come on board, things are better or whatever, they sort of just were like, let's just get him talking about anything. Like, let's just rebuild this relationship. And I thought it was nice. And it's that thing of, like, you know, his sister tries to, like, there is that nice relationship there between the two. And it was a nice, wholesome book. And it was a nice sort of, it was a nice tale in between season 1 and season 2. I've got to say, I do enjoy Stranger Things. Stranger Things season 1 and season 2. Very excited for Stranger Things season 3.
It's something I really should try again. Maybe I was in the wrong frame of mind.
Fun little story. Because you enjoyed the when we took first issue, didn't we? When we did Pull or Pass, so it might be worth checking it out. We really enjoyed this. Me and my mate in uni, because we turned our wall into the wall from Stranger Things. There's like an A to Z in the way to communicate. It's really cool. It was really fun. It was not fun taking it down and seeing there was some marks on the wall and be like, we don't have to pay for that. But we hid it well.
Wow.
But one of the things this sets up, which is really interesting, and one of the big things that it's advertising, is a Stranger Things prequel, which I'm very excited to see, because they talk about, like, before there was 11, before there was the this and that, there was, you know, I'm trying to get the actual thing so I'm not misquoting. She sees the future, the government sees a weapon, a prequel series taking place before the events of Stranger Things Season 1, which I'm really excited about, A, because it's Jodie Hauser again, and she's done incredible stuff. We're always gushing about her. But also because I have enjoyed Stranger Things, and I'm interested to see the world before this. Now, I have a feeling, though, that this prequel and other spin-offs were intended to actually be on the Netflix show, but there was a lot of backlash from one particular episode in season 2 where they did try and set up other worlds and people did not like it. So it's nice that it's getting another life in comics instead of thingies. So maybe before or after you watch the show,
maybe
would this be a pull or pass?
Well, both times I've read Stranger Things that I've thought that they were great comics. So I just don't know. I need to give. It's made me decide to give the TV show another go when I find some time.
So let's talk about Black Hammer, because I enjoyed this. I enjoyed the fourth wall breaking in it.
Yeah,
like the narration at the beginning.
Gentle meta is what I put on my notes.
And then there was a character in a comic book, and he was like, "Wait, is this my future? Is this?" And sort of like that worry there was sort of like, "Oh, okay, that was kind of cool." But I'll let you get your further thoughts on it.
Oh, essentially, I don't have much. It's Jeff Lemire that I haven't read. And I intend to read all of Jeff Lemire because literally everything I've read by him has been gold.
And it's exciting
so
as well.
I knew this was going to be a pull.
Oh, we forgot to mention this on the news. We might talk about it. Should we just leave it here? So Jeff Lemire is back working at Marvel, August 2019. Yeah, actually, we'll talk more about that next week.
We'll talk about that next week.
But
we've had a very long pass.
That was a Twitter announcement, and it was exceptional. Just the fact that he's back at Marvel and Marvel getting all these exceptional writers. But another thing that's happening in the future with Black Hammer is their crossover with the Justice League.
Yeah.
And this got me really excited for that. So in terms of a pull or pass for reading more Black Hammer, I would say definitely a pull because it's getting me more excited for that crossover with the Justice League because it established the Black Hammer team, and I was very like, oh, this will be cool seeing them interacting with the Justice League. I like this. I like it a lot. Is that all your thoughts on the Dark Horse? So, moving over now, we're on to Boom Studios. It should be called Whedon Studios almost. So this is called
Nothing wrong with that.
Welcome to the Whedonverse, and it's we've got a book on Firefly and technically 2 books on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. One of them's called Frenemies, the Buffy the Vampire Slayer ones, and one of them's a preview to Buffy the Vampire Slayer issue 1. Now, we've already talked about Buffy the Vampire Slayer issue 1. I think it was a pull for both of us.
Yeah, so it's already on issue 4 as well,
so
and I'm up to date with that.
We're going to ignore that part for now. We're going to talk about Firefly and Buffy the Vampire Slayer from these books. What were your thoughts on them, Mark?
Firefly was a phenomenon as a TV show. It only had 16 episodes, but the fact that it was 2002 as well, so 15, 16, 17 years later, people are still into Firefly. It's like the epitome of cult.
It is,
and I'm glad for it because it's a great universe, and this introduced a new character which to me was a little bit disappointing. I would have liked to have seen Mal and the usual characters.
Yeah.
But expanding the universe is not a bad thing.
And that was what they like. The front cover, it has the main characters from Firefly, Buffy the Vampire
Slayer, which is perhaps a little
Angel,
misleading.
Yeah. But it's one of them. It's like you say with cult cinema, cult TV shows. They always sort of live on in other mediums. Paratext. There you go. Well done. My cult cinema lecturer will be very proud that I use that. But they do live in other forms, like the Buffy the Vampire Slayer continued on in comics. Firefly
in very good comics.
Firefly
actually
continued on in comics. So this is it, again. This is just sort of a thing of like, Whedon's work is still out there for you to read in comics, and like, because there was that disappointment when Firefly got cancelled, and people with Buffy always wanted more stories, and this is what you got the Angel series, and Angel appears in this Buffy book, which I really liked, and it was interesting because both books were set up for their issue, like you can continue reading, and they were both on issue 5. The Buffy one had like continue reading in Buffy 5 and Angel 1, so I was like, okay, I like this.
I've bought Angel 1.
So I was going to say, pull or pass for you on these.
Firefly, it's a will reading trade. I'm not going to be buying the single issues. It has, so I suppose it's a pass. But for me, to add something to my pull, particularly now, as my pull is gigantic, it has to be something very special.
Yeah.
And I want to read the stories, but not so much that I'm going to be buying single issues.
I think Buffy's already technically on
It is on my pull. It's already on my pull.
Same with me. Angel, I guess I'd put it on my pull as well. It's one of the, especially if it's going to interact with the Buffy story, I'll add it to my pull. Just because you don't want to get half of the story, I'll be like, I feel like I'm missing out here. I don't want to be missing out. So yeah. Now, let's go to another publisher. We're going over to Archie. Little shout out to that royal baby that was born this week.
Yeah. He's called Archie. He's got ginger hair.
I know. Yeah, I was like, hey, I wonder if that's a,
I doubt it.
There was an American mother, so
I doubt it.
So yeah, it's a bit misleading because it says Riverdale season 3. There's not too much spoil from season 2 or season 3. It is very much based off small knowledges from season 1.
So my problem with this book, beyond the fact that I was always going to have a problem with it, was the most cynical of the lot. All the others put in a decent story, sometimes 2. This was 50% comic, 50% ads. Noticeably more ads than any of the other books.
Oh yeah, towards the end.
In the whole of out of the 30, I've actually read all 30 so far. This was noticeable because it was just ad after ad after ad, and that just irritated me. I get it. You're giving us a book for free, but this was blatant, and it was borderline obnoxious.
Literally, like half the book is ads. But to be fair, some of the Yeah, what was the one I wanted to...
So much ads. I can see you flicking through it now, and there's nothing but ads.
It's literally like a whole thing of... Yeah, I was just trying to... There was an ad I was interested in. I think it was literally that...
But you can't find it because there's so many ads.
No, it was the Sabrina the Teenage Witch one, because we mentioned that... I mentioned it on Forward Pass, and it was really... It was cool to see. And it is that thing of, like... I understand Archie's got so much going on right now, but, like, a further story would have been nice. And I have read 3 Comic Book Days... books from Archie in the past, and they've done little digests as well, and they have been great in the past. But it is a shame that this is
cynical.
This is literally just, it's almost like an ad catalogue, like an Argos catalogue or something like that. And it's disappointing that this time around that they only brought out one book, and it is this book. It would have been nice to see, like, you know, with the popularity of Sabrina, seeing a Sabrina book as well.
Yeah.
Seeing an ad for that, seeing like a free comic book day for the Sabrina the Teenage Witch, because there are a lot of people who enjoyed that TV series. And reading that first issue, it's really nice because they've managed to mix that TV series with some of the elements from the Chilling of Adventures. And it was nice for me because it's a nice balance, because I'm a big fraidy cat. So Chilling of Adventures, the book and the show can be quite scary at times. But this and the original TV show is a bit too much like Riverdale, a bit too much like, hey, teeny bop, it's all okay. Whereas, like, this book, the Sabrina book that they do now, Teenage Witch one, is a nice balance between the two. There is some gory elements in it, but it's not all gore all the time.
Look, we touched on it with
which is more me.
I like to be surprised. I like something that I don't think I'm going to enjoy to make me enjoy. And the story was okay.
Yeah.
The art was okay, but this just isn't my thing, and I was very, very irritated by the number of ads.
One thing I did enjoy is, like, sort of the relationship that has been built in Riverdale between Betty and Archie. You know, like, sort of like the gif of Maggie. They say, you know, when... Because the last time I saw this, and I know it's a big literary device used, but the last time I saw this was in a Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas. Mickey got this case for Minnie's necklace, but sold his harmonica for it, and Minnie sold her necklace to get him
it's a story
harmonica
that's been
case,
done a lot of
and
times
it's really
before.
nice. And I loved it in this Riverdale thing where it's like he sold his guitar so she could get case, and she sold a camera and I was like, that's really cute, because it's
been done a lot, though.
It epitomises their characters. Just because it's done a lot doesn't mean it wasn't done well.
No.
I know you'd be like, it's fair to be cynical on the book for other stuff, but this was a nice touch. This was the one good thing that they did in this thing, and it was nice. It was a shame that we didn't get to see this in the TV series, but it was nice to see it in another way. Now, I know you're thinking, my goodness, this poor passage is long.
It's very long.
We're on the last book, and it's from IDW. 20 years of IDW, 35 years of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yeah, we're talking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We're ending it on a pretty savage note, and a pretty cool note as well, because we talked last week when we did the preview, we were always talking about how we want to read more Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and this was sort of like, it led on to sort of like the City at War story, and, you know, I really dug this, but what were your thoughts?
So my experience of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, to be honest with you, and the films. I haven't read any of the books, and it's always something that I've really said I should do, and I never get round to it. So there were characters like Kata and Bludgeon and Alapex, and I don't know any of these characters. But what I did like about this was that it was a car chase in a comic book, and somehow they managed to get the intensity and the urgency of a car chase in a comic, and I don't think that's easy to do. It's obviously a lot easier to do on a film, but they got this really right. The Mutanimals look cool, and the one thing I did also like, at the back there was a helpful little timeline of the collected comics.
It's literally got like Start Here Volume 1, and it's got like little interceptions as well where there's like spin-off books, and I really do enjoy that reading guide.
And you compare that to Riverdale, which was just ads, whereas that was clever.
It leads on to like volumes 21, and it's one of them, like, it's a cool way, because these books are to get people reading. Yeah, but
I feel like that was a much more friendly, subtle, less in-your-face way, and I thought that they did that so well with that clever little timeline.
Yeah, it was.
That's a guide for me, because I want to read Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
So now you've got a little gateway, and what I liked is they did two sort of stories in a way. One of them was like Car Chase, which much more directed to the City at War story, but then there was this one that was almost like an origin, but that in both, we got like a full cast. We got the mutant animals in there. We got the Foot Clan. We got Krang. We got Shredder. We got Splinter.
It was crazy, really.
It was like, if you are a big fan of this, everyone was in there. If you're someone who's interested in it, everyone's in there, and you're like, oh, they look cool.
Who's this? Who's that?
And then at the back, it's like, you like these characters, here's where to follow the story. And it was, very well done as a marketing tool, and also the story itself was really good.
I'm going to buy the first graphic novel now, because I know the name of it, because of that timeline.
100%.
I think I thought that was a brilliant way to do a free comic book day book.
And they
did that right.
They also let you know about all the different crossovers they have with the Ghostbusters and with Batman, which is like, that's pretty cool.
Bonkers
Definitely a pull.
I think so.
That's it. That's the 10 books we've read for this week. Like we always say, that's just our two opinions. We want to know your fellow geeky opinions. What comics did you pick up on Saturday on Free Comic Book Day? Did you miss out on it? What are you doing? Maybe if you go into a comic book store,
go on eBay as well.
Some might still have them. Some might start charging you, but
and there's always eBay, I suppose.
Try and find a way of reading them, or like if someone's got some and lend them, definitely check them out. Like I say, we're going to talking about 10 more next week and 10 more the week after. So there's 20 more books for you all to look forward to. But out of these 10, which ones interest you? Which ones did you pull? Which ones did you pass on? We want to know all your geeky thoughts and more. And like we say, you can reach us on our Facebook discussion group, on our Twitter, and we've got a YouTube comment section below the YouTube video for this. But yeah, that's a third done.
So that's a very long pull or pass.
But that is pull or pass done.
Thanks for listening to Geek of the Week. Be sure to tune in next week. Same geek time, same geek channel.
And if you want to follow us on social media, it's at GOTW Radio on Twitter. Search for Geek of the Week Radio Show on Facebook. And to listen again, it's www.mixcloud.com/Geek of the Week Radio Show.